Have you ever thought about our Earth that corrupted by pollution? Have you ever realized what can pollution affect to our Earth? So there was a story where the air and the water was corrupted. In this story, every people were a max. So this is our story that titled Mask by Sterling Davenport that presented by me, Arya Muhaimin, and my partner, Yogi Novario Nandes.
There are three characters in this short story. The first is Julie, who is assistant to Professor Mark. The second is Professor Mark Nordland, is a professor in agrobiotech at China Agricultural University. The third is Li Wei, is a deputy minister in the country of Beijing.
The story takes place in Beijing and for the time is on 2037 in the future. One day, Julie have a promised to meet with Mark. After 10 minutes of waiting, Mark came with his bicycle and then they continue to the destination by the walk. While walk, they chat about the family, work, and income.
As soon as they reached the building, they entered, took off their masks and put them on the scanner. Then Liwei came and shook hands with Mark and I, then shook hands and introduced themselves.
After introduced themselves, they went to Liwei's room. They went there by taking the elevator. While in the elevator, they met other employees and chat with him. After exiting the elevator and arrived on the third floor, they paged the six security doors and finally arrived at Liwei's room. While in the room, Liwei provided them to drink water. Julie and Mark were surprised. The water that they drank was very clean.
Their conversations were filled with debates and also shared talks regarding the environment, work, and several other things. Li Wei invited Professor Mark to accept his project but couldn't because Mark had a contact with the university.
Liwei asked Mark to help him in experiment to make a prototype tool that could make pure water. Liwei also convinced Mark by taking him to a place in Chengdu. Mark asked Julie's opinion about Liwei's offer. Julie nodded and accepted. Liwei gave 2 days for Mark to finish all his work.
After that, they came out of the building and get separated. Mark asked Julie to meet in the greenhouse. Mark got on a bicycle and Julie got on the train. While on the train, Julie did not get enough space, so she was crushed by other passengers.
The greenhouse is located next to the Julie's dorm room. In the dorm room, Julie packed the thing that needed to take away in the Chengdu. After 2 days, they went to the airport. In the airport, they met Li Wei. Li Wei gave them the ticket for the departure, and then they have to check the stuff first. The plane was small, probably one of the older being models, since air travel had been scalped. Julie managed to look out the window to see the sheer landscape. It was blue sky as the eye could see.
When they arrived, Leeway's driver immediately greeted them in his jeep. The driver was a native Tibetan that named Wang Chan. They continued the trip with Jeep. As they got to rural territory, the road was almost impassable in some parts and faced an overflowing creek in the road. As the countryside became more and more beautiful, there was an army presence and evidence of mining projects. We had to pass 3 checkpoints where Lee presented credentials. And then they arrived at Leeway's house. It was so cleverly melded with the land that you couldn't even tell it was a house, except for the bank of solar panels sitting on the right side.
After having some rest, Leeway offered Julie and Mark a black tea. Leeway shared a conversation about this nice house and their surroundings. Once again, Leeway convinced Mark and Julie to take his project, and then Mark agreed with this. In this moment, Leeway pointed Mark to be a head of production food, and he appointed Julie to be his wife. Julie was surprised, but she cannot give the answer immediately. Later in that night, Julie watched a yak-led caravan with huge water jugs heading down the mountain and thought about what her mother said had been right. The mountains were winning.